Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Ambassador Tai, for joining us today. It's always good to talk to you. Unfortunately, I think a lot of our conversation today is centered around things that aren't going well on the trade front. I mean, it seems like over the last 3 years for the Biden administration, we've been having a lot of the same conversations, sharing the same frustrations with very little or no action. This committee, both Republicans and Democrats, are passionate about free and fair trade because we know when it's done right, it boosts our economy and lifts more people out of poverty. Unfortunately, the Biden administration has shown little interest in pursuing meaningful, fair trade agreements that benefit American workers and job creators. Instead, the administration's advanced some of the disastrous proposals coming from the OECD and WTO that are widely panned as detrimental to the United States and our economy. Over the past 3 years, USTR has failed to insist on safeguards for digital trade, which has been brought up before, which will result in a loss of U.S. tax revenue to other countries. By acquiescing to forced tech transfers, localized operations, and data localization, the administration is consenting to WTO proposals that will send U.S. jobs and IP to foreign jurisdictions, decreasing our tax base. In addition, OECD's Pillar 2 project would accelerate the loss of tax revenue because Treasury succeeded the primacy of U.S. international tax system. While I'm especially concerned about the global minimum tax in Pillar 2, I want to step back to Pillar 1. As you know, me and several of the members of the committee have had concerns about proliferation of the discriminatory digital services taxes since 2017, which is why I encouraged the previous administration to engage in the OECD BEPS 2.0 project. As you know, the goal of this project were to eliminate digital service taxes and provide tax certainty and simplicity for businesses in a growing digital economy. Eliminating extraterritorial taxes like DSTs is not a Republican or Democrat issue. My Democrat colleague, Congressman Dan Kildee, and I introduced a resolution in 2020 condemning DSTs. Yet today we're seeing more countries like Canada enact DSTs, and the OECD issued a convoluted 800-page draft deal that leaves more questions than answers. And because of this, it's my belief that Pillar 1 deal now represents a foot in the door to more extraterritorial taxes on successful U.S. businesses. A recent Law 360 article summarizes sentiment from a tax subcommittee earlier this year, saying both Republicans and Democrat members made clear that they oppose digital services taxes, many of which would be eliminated under Pillar 1, but stakeholders raised concerns about the extent to which the convention would protect companies from future measures. The JCT report on Pillar 1, released earlier this year, notes that a plurality of in-scope companies would be from the U.S., and 70%, or $135 billion of Amount A, would come from American companies. Likewise, the U.S. Treasury would forgo between $100 billion and $4.4 billion per year in tax receipts, as we were giving away our taxing rights to other countries. And USTR's negotiation with Canada on a DST that they deemed acceptable is also troubling, be seen as an easy provision for other countries to copy. Ambassador, I've noticed this in previous hearings. The House Ways and Means Committee, which has jurisdiction over taxes and trade, should have been involved in the conversations early on, and it's simply unacceptable that Pillar 1, as currently negotiated by the Biden administration, risks sending U.S. dollars to foreign treasuries at the expense of American job creators, innovators, and workers. Kansans I represent send me to this body to put their best interest first, not those of foreign countries seeking to pilfer the U.S. Treasury. In relation to the negotiations with Canada regarding their DST, what would be the threshold for a tax to be determined discriminatory towards the United States? Would it be that 25% of the in-scope businesses were American, or over 50%, over 75%? Where is that threshold in the discussions that you're having?
Mr. Estes, you've compacted a lot of information into your question, and so I promise I will get to it. But first, I have to start with your characterization of what we have done or not done in the context of the WTO. I have to admit I didn't fully understand which topics you were concerned about, but I really do have to stand up for my people and my agency. We work too hard, including at the WTO, which is a very challenging but important institution. to allow for someone like me that leads an agency to accept assertions like that to stand. So I'm just going to put on the record that I object to the characterizations that we are not standing up for American interests or that we are not leading at the WTO. On your question on DSTs, I will have to say that for a lot of it, let me just start with, I'm the U.S. Trade Representative and not the U.S. Tax Representative, and a lot of what you are characterizing as a Biden administration approach really is led by the Treasury Department, which I know is subject to Ways and Means jurisdiction. It's just that I'm not the person and we're not the main agency. Your specific question, though, with respect to Canada and discriminatory aspects of Canada's DST, that is where we come into the DST conversation, where DSTs that are proposed and come into the world have discriminatory impacts. That is exactly the question that we engage on, not with Canada, but with a number of other jurisdictions. We have suspended Section 301 actions. We stay in very close contact in understanding what the dynamics are around Pillar 1 and Pillar 2, and we look at all the tools that we have with respect to addressing those issues in USTR's purview.
Well, as you know, I only have 5 minutes to ask questions, so covering a lot of material, and it's unfortunate that we can't get to some solutions. So thank you for that, and I yield back.